What is going on, and welcome back to another episode of I Coach Nutrition Radio. Good morning, top of the morning to you here as I'm kicking off my day with some coffee. I set one of the goals here for the new year to break what I would say a bad habit of going to Starbucks every day. My wife and I essentially figured out that going to Starbucks every single day of 2022 basically cost us on average $10 a day, on average $300 a month, on average $2,400 a year. I'm sorry, not $2,400, $3,600 a year. And yeah, did I say that right? 300 times 12. Yeah, 300 times 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 3,600. Yeah, $3,600 for the year. $3,600 at Starbucks. Insane. I know. If you think about it, I could take $3,600. That's a vacation. $3,600. I could invest that into a stock market. $3,600. You max out half your Roth IRA. Money that could be spent in a much more intelligent way than at Starbucks. So we got the Nespresso, and here I am making my own espresso every day. And I think that's a big piece of, as you're coming into January here as a new year, right? I mean, ultimately, there's some good habits that you want to build, and there's some bad habits you want to break. And that's just one example of a bad habit that my wife and I wanted to break. And so we're on day 3 here of no Starbucks. And it's not the same. I mean, I enjoy getting my grande vanilla sweet cream nitro cold brew. But with that said, I mean, it's also more convenient to not have to go pick that up at Starbucks. And it's definitely worth being able to save the money and be able to use that money in a more intelligent way. So I say that just to start off the podcast here, and it honestly has nothing to do with the podcast. But as we're coming into this, as we're in this new year now, right? I think that's one thing that I definitely would want to challenge you with is what are the good habits that you want to build in this new year? And what are the bad habits that you want to break? Right. And there's a book that I recommend to every client that I work with as a quote unquote required reading that's called Atomic Habits. And if you have not read it, it is a life-changing book. It is an absolutely phenomenal book. I would recommend it to everybody. It will absolutely transform the way that you think about building good habits and breaking bad habits. So without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. This came from a question from somebody that joined the private Facebook group. They said, how do you eat healthy while traveling for work? So the reality of this is a lot of the eating healthy while traveling for work actually comes back into the habits, right? What are the habits that you have for travel? Are you somebody that has used the excuse of I'm traveling for work, I just can't eat healthy, or it's just hard to eat healthy or whatever? Or are you somebody that has worked on building good habits to set yourself up for success while on the road with your nutrition? So one of the most simplistic approaches here when it comes to your nutrition and eating healthy while traveling for work is that, regardless of which restaurants you're eating at, as I always say, it's not hard to eat healthy when you go out to eat. It's hard to make the healthy decision when you go out to eat. And I'll say that again. It's not hard to eat healthy when you go out to eat. It's hard to make the healthy decision when you go out to eat, right? And so how do you get out of reactive mode, when you go out to eat? Well, let's take a little bit more of a proactive approach, right? As soon as you figure out where you're going to eat, simply search this restaurant on Google. Look up their menu, create a plan, right? What am I going to get when I go to this restaurant? Rather than just sitting down and probably being with other people right? Now you're engaged in conversation and you're just already in reactive mode because you're just going to get what you're used to getting, right? If you go into it with a proactive approach and you've already planned out what you're going to get, well, then now you can just be engaged in conversation with clients, at this client lunch or client dinner or whatever, and you already have a game plan going into it. So you're not getting distracted, right? You're just following through with the game plan that you already set forth, or you're executing on your game plan. And so a great rule of thumb here is using that iCoach plate example to build out your meals when you're going out to eat, right? And so if you remember what that visual looks like is I'm filling up half my plate with color, right? So vegetables or fruits or a combination of both. Pretty much every restaurant you go to, you can get vegetables or fruits or a combination of both, right? Then from there, you want to fill up a quarter of your plate with protein. Pretty much every restaurant you can get protein at. And then from there, you'll fill up a quarter of your plate with carbohydrates. Pretty much every restaurant you can fill up, they have carbohydrates, right? So some of these meals, you're going to be able to kind of build them out like that, right? Let's say, for example, you pick an entree, right? The entree is either a meat or a seafood entree, right? Or if you're vegetarian or vegan, you can maybe potentially get something that falls in line into one of those categories. And excuse me for my allergies. They are kicked up yesterday and they have been terrible. But essentially the entree section, right, that's going to take care of, the meat or the seafood protein source or the plant-based protein source there, right? So that'd be your quarter plate protein. From there, most of the time, those entrees come with two sides, right? And so what you can do is for one of the sides, pick either a vegetable or fruit, right? And you might have to double up on that in order to fully get that half plate. And then with the other side, you'll pick a carbohydrate. And then now all of a sudden, you've been able to build out an iCoach plate. So let's say, for example, you go to a Mexican restaurant, right? Mexican restaurant, let's say you pick fajitas, right? And you fill up a quarter of your plate protein with the chicken. You fill up half your plate color with the bell peppers, the onions, the pico, the guacamole, right? And then you fill up a quarter of your plate with either tortilla or beans or rice, right? So that's just an example there at a Mexican restaurant where you could do that at. Or maybe you go to a steakhouse, right? And you fill up a quarter of your plate with steak, you fill up a quarter of your plate with potatoes, and you fill up half your plate with asparagus, right? So this is just an example, but you can absolutely be able to build out an iCoach plate at 99% of restaurants that you go to and 99% of places that you go to in the world. The other side of it is going to be, when you're not going out to these client breakfast, lunches, dinners, and you're just kind of on your own, right? So a great strategy here, would be to, as soon as you figure out, where you're going, do a quick search and find a grocery store. As soon as you touch down from your flight, right, find a grocery store. You almost always can be able to go to a grocery store and pick healthy food that you can be able to bring back to your hotel, put in your little mini fridge there. I always search Whole Foods, right? There's a Whole Foods in pretty much every major city these days. So if you can go to Whole Foods and hit up their hot bar, you can be able to, build out your iCoach plate there into the container and be able to take that with you. You could even build it out into 2 meals, like fill up the whole container and make that 2 meals. They also have pre-made meals that you can get that you can be able to microwave. They also have things like sushi and wraps and sandwiches that you don't have to microwave. You can be able to get healthy snacks. And this is not just at Whole Foods, but most grocery stores, right? And then same thing with like the airport, right? The airport, like there's always going to be, some healthy snacks. And then there's also a lot of unhealthy snacks. With the restaurants, there's some restaurants that have healthy options and there's a lot of restaurants that have unhealthy options. But a lot of this just comes back into you really got to kind of assess your current traveling habits, right? I hear this all the time with clients where it's like it's on a company credit card. And so you're just having a free for all there, right? I mean, I get it. Like it's nice, especially if this is a new thing. But at some point, you got to be disciplined and you've got to ask yourself, are these decisions that I'm making in line with my goals? Right? Because if I'm just, having a free for all of my company credit card here, well, then, like you're going to be sabotaging yourself when you're on the road. And ultimately, you're a product of the decisions that you make the majority of the time. The other thing that could really, really help you here with traveling is tracking your food intake. And although you might not be able to track it 100% accurate, just even trying to track it is going to make you a lot more aware of your nutritional choices, right? You're going to start to, log in your food, log in your meal before you eat it, or worst case scenario, right after you eat it, right? You're going to be able to kind of see how many calories that you consumed in that meal. Also kind of see the breakdown of the protein and fats and carbohydrates in that meal. And then from there, you can kind of start to budget your calories in a way that are going to be in line with your goals, right? If you're not yet ready for tracking your food on an app like MyFitnessPal Chronometer, another thing that you could do is you could just do a food picture log. If you're literally taking a picture of your meals throughout this trip, it's going to make you more mindful of what you're actually consuming. Excuse me. Man, my allergies are terrible. But like I was saying, I'm about to sneeze again. Excuse me. If you have this visual and you're taking pictures of everything that you eat from a meal and snack standpoint, and then at the end of the day, you're kind of going back through and you're looking at your food picture log and you're assessing, that's going to ultimately influence your decisions that next day, right? Or influence your decisions throughout the day, right? And so instead of you having a trip where you just eat like crap the whole entire trip, you're able to take a second and reflect after each meal, take a second and reflect after each day, and ultimately allow your food picture log to give you the awareness to be able to assess your decisions, right? And your decisions hopefully will influence, or this assessment will hopefully influence your decisions as you move forward through that trip, so that, again, like overall for the trip, that you did your best job. And ultimately, effort is the name of the game with this, right? As I always say, it's not hard to eat healthy when you go out to eat, or when you're at the airport, or when you're traveling. It's hard to make the decisions, right? Like, I mean, by this point, most people know what healthy food is versus unhealthy food, right? Most people know that if they go to, wherever, and they get, let's say a chicken salad, that's going to be a lot healthier than them getting, a burger or pizza or chicken tenders and fry, whatever, right? So it just, again, it comes back to this decisions. And when you're looking for a place of finding some balance, let's say you do want to have the pizza, or you do want to have the burger or whatever, like, how can you improve on that meal, right? How can you add to that meal to make it healthier? And this is where adding the color can really help, right? Adding vegetables or fruits or a combination of both to your meal is going to make that meal healthier, right? It's going to add more nutrients into that meal. It's going to add more vitamins and minerals into that meal. It's also going to give you more food volume so that you get full, so that you get satiated off of those vegetables and fruits, especially if you eat those first before eating the rest of your food, which can help with, not overeating, right? It can also help with your digestion while traveling, because that's one of the things that suffers the most when people travel, is their vegetable and fruit intake goes down significantly, right? Because they're eating out way more than normal. Now all of a sudden their digestion gets interrupted. Now you're not having a bowel movement for a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, right? You're stopped up, you're constipated, you're feeling bloated. And the list just kind of goes on there. The other thing that can really help with traveling too is, I know this wasn't on the question with, eating healthy while traveling, but working out while traveling can really help. Every single hotel has a hotel gym. It might not be the best hotel gym, but pretty much every hotel gym at least has some dumbbells. Or if they don't have that, you have your body. You can do body weight workouts in your hotel room if need be, right? So where there's a will, there's a way with a lot of this stuff, right? It's so much easier to find an excuse rather than to find a way, right? And again, like, if your health is a priority to you, and living a healthy lifestyle is a priority to you, if you have goals that you're trying to accomplish here, right? Well, again, we prioritize the things in our life that is important to us, right? I mean, you have an hour a day to move. whether it be a workout or a walk or whatever, you have an hour a day to do it. And if you don't have an hour, you have 30 minutes. If you don't have 30 minutes, you have 15, but you have the ability to do something on a daily basis, right? And again, you have also the ability to make decisions, and you're a product of the decisions that you make, right? You can make it a decision to prioritize your sleep. You can make it a decision to prioritize your nutrition. You can make a decision to prioritize your exercise. You can make a decision to prioritize your hydration. You can make a decision to prioritize your stress management. It's up to you, right? I went through obviously the exercise and the nutrition side of this. On the hydration side, like, there's no reason why you can't always have a water bottle with you, right? There's no reason why you can't limit or avoid alcohol. There's no reason why you can't make sure that you stay within the limits of 300 milligrams of caffeine per day and don't abuse caffeine by just crushing energy drinks all the time, right? There's no reason why you can't do something like a 5-minute meditation or breathing exercise to help with stress management, or go for a walk, get some fresh air, get some sunlight, right? You know, there's no reason why you can't prioritize sleep, unless you've got, you know, you're getting in late, catching a red eye, or doing, you know, some crazy travel schedule that might, you know, there are some things that are outside of your control here. But that's really what the big takeaway here is control the controllables. Learn how to control the controllables, right? You only have so much time and energy, so put that into things that you actually have control over. Try to stack up some little wins in that regard. And then there's some things that you don't have control over, so don't stress the small stuff, right? Put your time and energy on things that you actually have control over. And I think a big focus here and encouragement would be, take some of this advice that I'm giving you and apply it to your next work trip, right? Try to make it a little bit better than the previous one. Reflect on this after watching this or listening to this, and ask yourself, what are some of my bad habits when it comes to travel? And how can I work on improving just one of those in this next trip? Or maybe a few of these in this next trip? Or what are some good habits that I want to build into this next trip? What are some ideas that I've gotten from listening to this or watching this podcast? So hopefully this helps. Hopefully this gives you some very tangible advice, right? Some advice here that you can actually go and apply to your next trip. But this would be some of the general advice there that I'd give to eating healthy while traveling for work. Also just, you know, trying to continue living a healthy lifestyle while traveling for work. And just realizing that the more you travel, the more that this is a part of your lifestyle. So you can't be able to say, hey, like, you know, I do well when I'm home, but then when I travel, that's when the struggles come. Like, you've got to realize that the more that you travel, the more that this is the definition of your lifestyle, and you've got to learn how to navigate through these situations while traveling. And yeah, it's a confidence, it's a skill set that you have to develop. But when you're being intentional with it and you're making it a priority, you will continue to get better and better and better. You'll get more confident, you'll develop the skill set, and then this won't be something that, you know, is a huge struggle for you. Sure, it might still be more challenging than when you're in your own environment at home, but you've built the confidence, you've developed the skill set, you know how to navigate it, and now you're a lot more confident in your approach as you move forward. So I hope this helps. Thank you again for the individual that asked the question. And yeah, keep the questions coming. Love doing these podcast episodes and being able to answer your questions. Again, I think we're at like almost 250 podcast episodes now, so I feel like I've done a topic over everything. So it's nice to be able to get these questions and answer your questions here on the podcast. And outside of that, yeah, hope y'all have an amazing week. Hope y'all are starting off the new year strong. And yeah, until next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.